Hello, friends. Welcome to Prerna Ke Srot. The guests gracing this episode are the reason why this channel is called Prerna Ke Srot, the source of inspiration. She was a banker when she decided to leave her job to look after her boys who needed her support, while he decided to take the responsibility of the family on his shoulders and continue to work towards his aspiration and his career. A journey which is beautiful because of the symphony that they both create together. A journey which is special because they raised their boys so beautifully and made them the role models for the society. Let's welcome Mr. and Mrs. Rajan. So, welcome to Prerna Ke Srot, Mr. and Mrs. Rajan.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
It's such a wonderful feeling to have you on this platform where I get an opportunity to showcase a beautiful relationship that the two of you have, and also request people to take inspiration from the two of you for their own relationship goals. So let's begin the journey from the beginning. How about telling us how did you meet each other and how did this journey of togetherness start?
This pleasure is ours, and I think Lata will start.
Uh, Actually, he is my cousin. That's my father's elder sister's son. But I had no occasion to interact with him or meet him during, during our youth, so to say, because he was staying at Kerala and we were at Bangalore most of the time. My father was in the army, and I used to get to see only a glimpse of him peeping through some corner of the house. So after that, it was like we are a family of with five sisters, and I'm the fourth one. So I was the last. I never expected that I'll get married or somebody will fall in love with me or something like that. So I was more of a boyish kind of a character who used to do all chores for the house. And then when finished college and I just took up a job. Suddenly my dad came and my sisters came and they were teasing me. So somebody is getting hooked and things like that. So I never realized it was for me. And then they said, Rajan has proposed to you and Rajan has asked your hand in marriage and he's written a letter to dad. And that was
so that
like
is
a
like
jolt from the
formally
blue.
he wrote a letter, kind of a marriage proposal.
Yeah, it was like a jolt from the blue, and I started weeping. I started weeping because I had, before that, I had a few occasions where he had come home. Since he's my cousin, he used to come home and then he used to always play pranks with me. So I used to always cross swords with him. So I never expected that the relationship would change totally. So it was very difficult for me to accept that a person with whom I used to, always argue and never expected that he will like me and he will want me as a life partner.
Maybe
So
he fell in love with the arguments that you gave him at the early age.
yeah. Then he told me later that while he was in college, he had fallen in love with me, and he used to tell his friends that I have a cousin who is staying at Bangalore, and I want to marry her. So all his friends used to, make fun of him. He said, "You are marrying, falling in love with a girl from Bangalore. She'll have so many boyfriends, and their lifestyle is totally different." So he vouched that no, she is not that kind of a person, and then we took off. Now I will over to him. I don't know how he wants to, explain the relationship.
Well, I had a childhood crush on her. Basically, she represented everything urban to me. I was a very rural child from a very, I would say, low middle class family. And she used to come to our house maybe once in 2 years or something like that. And I used to look at her from a distance because their culture, their way of living, their dressing, everything was quite strange to me, and maybe something like beyond the reach kind of a feeling. And but then started coming up in life and did my civil service exam and all that. So then I knew that I could ask for her hand, and fortunately for me, she agreed. And that's how we came into this wonderful relationship.
Wow. So at this moment, I also want to tell the viewers here that ma'am was a banker, when she was working, and you were into civil services. And then you started your family. So what makes them special is that they raise some beautifully special kids, and the way that they're raised, that makes them and the family and the bond beautifully special. So ma'am, please tell us about how was it raising Ritvik and Roshan?
Um, well, it is like, just like any other parents, any other couple who look forward to becoming a mother or father, parent, and looking after the children and caring for them. But in our case, it was totally different because my elder son, when he was born, uh, he had certain issues, like he was not focusing on anything. The black of the eye, it was just going tossing up and down like that. And then I was taking him to the pediatrician, and she said, I have to take him every month on that particular date, when after completion of 1 month. And then the doctors, they frightened us like anything. They said the circumference of his head is very big, and that has to be monitored. And if it keeps growing, then we'll have to put a stent in that, in the brain, and a lot of other complications. So we were just praying that nothing bad happens. So regularly I was going for a checkup every month. And the third month, when I took him, my husband was not with me. He was in Delhi. And the doctors, he woke up. Otherwise, whenever I used to take him to the doctors, he used to be sleeping. So the doctor couldn't examine his eyes. So that particular month, February 8th, that was, when I went, he woke up, and then I asked the doctors to examine. And then she looked at him, and then she summoned the RMO of the hospital. And then a group of doctors barged into that place. And then the RMO, he took Roshan, and they were opening his eyelids, and he was screaming. And then he declared that he has cataract. So I said cataract can be removed. So I didn't sound like a big, trauma for me. So then later, at the end of the whole thing, he said he is blind. So that was a big shock for me. And the bigger shock for me was how to break the news to Rajan, because we used to share everything, the good and bad. And it was like that. So next morning when he came, I told him, then he said, it's okay, whatever happens, we'll take it together. So from there, the journey started. And I think raising Roshan and Ritvik, if I had to put it in a nutshell, it has been quite a long journey, but very memorable and fruitful. And but during the journey, Roshan interrupted the journey, and he chose to leave us to find peace and happiness with God. So he's no more with us. And then we had to take Ritvik on a solo trip. Now Rajan will tell you the rest of it.
Yeah. My part of the story is slightly different, even though I was there with her all the time. And because the moment something of this kind happened, I wanted to actually achieve things, do great things in life. And when I was a child, I was also a very big joint family, about 3-4 families under the same roof. And so the overall, the culture in that family, the message was, the culture was more like a crab in the basket kind of a culture. So if somebody wants to come up, the other person pulls you down, that kind of a culture. So when this happened, when Roshan's problems were known to us, she took it in the right spirit, and with the hope and challenges and action and all that. I made God into my first enemy. I said, why God has done this? He wants to sort of obstruct me. So that was my first step into the victim route. And it took nearly more than 3 decades for me to come out of the victim mentality, and my career activities, my experiments with transformational leadership in my career, that made me sort of shift from a victim to a pioneer. Basically, in my career, I was a pioneer. At home, I was a victim. So these, two divergent personalities was within me, and very often Lata used to tell me that you are a double-faced person.
He was quite ambitious and very intelligent, and he wanted to do so many things. So I didn't want him to get crushed in this kind of an environment where he will be sucked into a lot of problems. So I told him that if you want to study further, you can go ahead. And then he started doing his French, he started doing his Spanish. So he would go for a class in the morning, go to the office, evening there will be another class. So he kept himself busy the whole day, and that made me comfortable, like in the sense that he is not weighed down by all these kind of problems, because I didn't want him to, because he's more sensitive than me. So with all these problems, if he has, he will not be able to achieve anything in life. So I gave him his space and I told him, you go ahead with your learning, I will manage things.
But wasn't that bit too harsh on yourself that, as coaches, we always tell that raising a child takes two, people. It's a responsibility shared between both the parents. And here you actually, while he was supporting you and the family with, all the things that he wanted you to do, he wasn't around when you needed him. Was that not the feeling for you?
No, it's not that he wasn't around. He was very much there. He was very much there. So I never felt isolated. So it was not that I am taking on the responsibility myself, but I didn't want him to get weighed down by these kind of setbacks in life, because I am not a person who is ambitious and I am not a person who wants to achieve something in life. So I thought, okay, let me take on the burden and let me do the work. And
it is like this, that she never used her mind to find solution to the problems. And because she was basically an intuition-based person and very strong, very capable. And I had full trust in her capabilities. And I was a very mental person, making concepts and stories and point of views and theories and all that. And probably that was not the right time for us to meet in the journey together. And the right time came much later. But surprisingly, it was my, I wouldn't say ambition, it was my desire to prove to the world that the bureaucracy can be effective. That was my challenge, actually. This is a challenge which I put to myself, that I want to prove that the bureaucracy can deliver, right? And nobody asked me to do that, but then I took it upon myself. Along with that, of course, I did so many other languages, courses, and various other things. And most of the time, I had in the background the feeling that I'm trying to escape from the realities. And I had a sense of guilt that maybe I'm not, with her to the full extent. But then I was very confident that she will decide what is good for the family. So our decision making was very simple. Most of the times she will decide. As far as children are concerned, I think 99% of the decisions were coming up in her. I wouldn't say that she was thinking about it. It was coming up in her. And then the moment she puts it out, I will just okay it. Sometimes she goes without asking me also, that's also fine. Because she was in her space and she was very comfortable there. Confident, comfortable. And so I had 100% trust and faith in her capabilities. And probably if I had come with my mind, it would have become much worse. So it's better to be a silent partner than being an argumentative partner. She was in her space and she was comfortable there. And now I am in my space. So nobody gives space to another person. Our space has expanded basically, and it has become one space now, where we
Wow.
are together. So it's not that I, as a husband, gave her space to do things. She took the space herself. Whenever there is a vacuum, naturally somebody takes up that space. She took the space because there was vacuum from my side, possibly, whatever is the reason, and I didn't grudge it. And I have found my space, and these two spaces are now together. This becomes sort of bigger, and so decision making is. We don't intellectually discuss any or finding out reasons and causes and analysis and all that. I do a lot of analysis, but I don't share most of it with her because she will say, "Why are you?"
I don't
wasting
understand
time?"
them basically.
Because she thinks from her heart and not from the analysis viewpoint.
Yeah, so she was working from her heart and her intuition, and I, with my mind, took about 3 decades to sort of come to come to realize that the space is same, where we are in a position to be in the same space. Now I feel that we are together in this, and I know how to communicate with her, right time, right words. I filter out many things and give what is essential to her. So that it can be of some help to her. So that's how the journey has taken place.
Right. So I would want to know that while you had two kids who had special needs and who were very, very different from each other also, while they both had a sort of visual impairment, but then still they were different kids in terms of their capability. So how did you manage these two different kids differently? Because both of them at one point in time had been at the maximum utilization of their potential. And for Ritvik, we are still exploring and he is still growing, and he's growing so beautifully. So how did you do these things which are so different from the usual parents?
Well, when Roshan was born, we didn't have any idea of what is visual impairment and what will be in store for us in future. So the doctors, when they gave a reply that we cannot do anything about his sight, you go ahead with whatever you can get to do about him. So that was a big question mark before us, and so I was staying with my parents, my sisters, and all were together. So all children grew up together, and Roshan also grew up with them. So his childhood was normal like any other child. He would mix with everybody. And then when it came to his schooling, we just had to check out on schools, and various schools, they said these schools are meant for normal children, and we were all totally pushed out of the school. Rather, I was pushed out of school because every time I used to take Roshan and to various schools. Then we said we'll just try the school for the visually impaired. So we went to the Whitefield school, and we took a lot of snacks and all for the children. We wanted to spend some time to study how the surroundings and how the environment is there over there. So when we went there, the children were all very independently doing things, but then we were not very happy with the surroundings over there and with what all they are going through over there. So we said we will not put Roshan over there. We'll just wait and see. And those days, the integrated education was unheard of. So we just kept him at home, and I was giving him all other inputs like reading for him and things like that. Then one of my customers came and told me that there is a school in which he has seen some children with visual impairment. So we put him in that school, and then he started schooling. And there was no resource teacher at that time. So I had to do a lot of, dharna with NAB at that time, National Association for the Blind. I used to walk miles, and many days I've gone without food. And Roshan also used to be like that. But then ultimately we got a resource teacher, and he didn't have an accommodation. We put him in our house, and he was taking Roshan to the school. And before Roshan learned Braille, when we went to the blind school, I got 1 or 2 children from there. I said, if you can come and teach me Braille, it will be helpful. So they came and taught me Braille. So I learned Braille. So it was easy for me to, teach him and go ahead with his education. The 10 years that he was with me, in the sense my husband was away for about 14 months in the initial stage of his schooling. He was away at France, and I had to undergo a lot of trauma as far as his schooling is concerned, because the school was not accepting him, and there was a change in the principal, and a lot of setbacks were there. So I had fought against all of them. I remember, because every time the principal would come and walk into the class and she would see these children, I would put them in between the other children, and she would walk in and they say, "What are these children like?" She would treat them like dirt. So one fine day, and she gave me an ultimatum. She said, "You're not going to be there." I took leave and I was sitting with the children. There were 5 other children over there. So then she told me that you're not going to bring them again unless you get a resource teacher. Because to our, bad luck, that particular year when I put Roshan in school, there was no resource teacher. So I had to be there to make sure that they learn whatever the teacher teaches them. So one fine day again, when assembly was on, and I took Roshan and went, and the principal saw me coming, and she said, "I have given you an ultimatum. You are not coming into the school anymore." So I said, "What is your problem?" She said, No, I told you have to get. I got so wild, and I gave her a blast. That was my first time I blasted out like that. So I told her, "You are the principal of the school. You are like a mother to all the children here. I'm a mother to only Roshan, but you're like a mother and you don't treat me like this. If you're going to do this, I'm going to take you to court," and this, that. I blasted her, and then she changed. They shifted her out of the school, and we got a new principal, and then his education went on. Then, so 10 years there was absolutely no other issues, excepting that I had to work really hard to make sure that he is abreast with his class thing. And after, when he was 10 years old, whenever we used to go to my sister's place or anywhere, or when he goes to his friend's place, he will find that they all have siblings. So he would come and ask me, "Mama, why I don't have a sibling? Because I'm not able to see." So, we were so worried about it. And he was actually a very positive child, very adventurous, very sportive, and very active. But these thoughts, started creeping into him, and he started becoming very negative and very, isolated kind of a person. So then I was telling my husband, so then we said we'll have another child. So we checked up with various doctors. So they said some chromosomal tests and all have to be done. So, but we had some friends who also had a child like this. She had undergone all the tests, but she got a child with worst deficiencies, and she lost the child also. So we said we won't go in for all these kind of tests. Let us leave it to God. So I conceived, and then I didn't want to take any medicines, no other extra treatments or anything. So I was under the guidance of one doctor. So I said I'll only go through a cesarean section because there is no question of any other external intervention. So it was a cesarean section. And when Ritvik was born, when I gained my conscience, I didn't expect that anything good can happen. So it was a totally a numb kind of feeling that I had. I said, whatever be the thing, but I was worried about Rajan. How will he take it? So when he came and he told me it is a boy, then I said, how is he? Does he look like you or does he look like me? That was the only question I posed to him. I didn't ask him whether he can see or anything. So after that, we came to know that he also has some problems, and we took him to some LV Prasad Institute, and some tests and all were done. Then they said for him also the same issues are there. So you don't have to undergo, have him to go through cataract operation and things like that. So just leave it at that. So the day we went to the doctor, and the doctor declared that Ritvik also has the same problem. Roshan was also there with us. And Roshan was a firm believer in God. And I used to, and he was studying in a missionary school. So whenever he scored very good marks, they used to give him Bible written in Braille, because those days only Bible was available in Braille. So I had got him a statue of Jesus, and I would give him a candle stand, and I had given him a candle. I said, every day you light a candle for Jesus and pray. And the Jesus statue was also there in our puja room. So every evening, when I light the lamp, he'll also come and sit with me. He'll pray to God, and then he'll kneel down and he'll put the cross on his body, and he will pray to God. And his belief was so much that one of Rajan's colleagues, we went to their house and they had some foreigners come in. So Roshan was so much, he knew the Bible throughout. All the Psalms in the Bible he knew. So when those visitors had come, they asked something to him. So he said it is in Psalm number so and so on page number so and so. So they were highly impressed and they said, we cannot believe that a child like this knows much more than what we know. So then what they did, they had a cross with them in their purse. So they said, you keep this with you and you pray to Jesus and he'll take care of you. So I had got him a chain and it was a small silver chain or something and he had put the statue of the Jesus cross. And he used to have it in on his neck always and he used to pray every evening. But the day that we went to that LV Prasad Institute and the doctor declared that Ritvik is also visually impaired, he was totally cross and he became so aggressive and he was so upset. He just sat silently. He was weeping in the auto when we came back. He was weeping in the auto. Then he came back home. He just went to the puja room and he just took his cross and he just threw it there. He said, I don't believe in you. You have done this to me. Now you have taken away my brother's sight. I will not believe you. So that was a kind of a thing that happened to us. And then Ritvik's journey happened. He started, singing when he was about 1.5 years old, and music was the only medium of communication for him. So for Ritvik, he has multiple issues, and we are still trying to find solutions. Every time it is some experimental things, trying this. If it doesn't work, something else, and it just goes on. So that is the way it has been, the journey of Roshan and Ritvik separately.
Ritvik has the tactile deprivation to a large extent, which normally compensates for the visual deprivation. In his case, due to this double, deprivations, and the fact that he received more musical input than any other environmental input in his early formative years, it has led to a situation where he doesn't have many concepts to communicate with people. Okay. And
music has become his mother tongue.
Yeah, music is, I always tell Lata that music has occupied the space which was to be occupied by mother tongue, right? And so as a result, he finds it difficult to communicate socially and experience events as we do. Okay. He is experiencing in his own way with limited areas of attention. And as a result, when you are not able to interact with your audience and with your friends and things like that, then your inputs are also further reduced. So he's in an area where now majority of his expressions are through music, and rest of it is not very vocal. He uses a body for expression of many of his feelings. So that is, otherwise basically he doesn't have any other issue. The cognitive impairment is due to the fact that
external stimuli is not given at the right time.
Yeah, and he's not able to use language for expression of all his feelings.
So coming to the part where both of you worked as a team together for raising the boys in your own way, what were those very special decisions or very critical decisions that you took in your life?
Well, actually, I don't know whether we work as a team. I think, Lata had, something called, I wouldn't call it a relationship. It's not a mother-children relationship. It is a connection. She refused to cut her connection with the children. And, normally parents expect children to become independent after some time. And they also want, maybe they want a clone. The parents want a clone of the children out of the children. Separate but similar. That is the kind of expectations normally parents have. And in her case, she has never severed the connection with the children. They are together. I mean, they are one basically. When I always tell her that when you are one with another person, then there is not even a question of acceptance because you are one.
I remember, when Roshan was like this, he couldn't see. So I used to close my eyes and feel everything to get into his world. So whatever I see, I'll just close my eyes and try to feel with my fingers. And it went on to such an extent that many times when Roshan and Ritvik were sitting with me together, and I would be in there talking to them, connecting with them for music or anything, studies or anything. And when Rajan would come home in the night after his office hours, he would think there's no power in the house. So then he'll come and he'll ask, why are you sitting in the dark? Then I look up and I see that I have not switched on the light. It was to such an extent that I would be always with them. I would see the world through their eyes and, feel everything. So even now I'm so used to it. If something falls down, I close my eyes and search for it.
So as far as Lata, Roshan and Ritik are concerned, they were in one world together.
That's a very beautiful thing to say. While I understand the challenges that you have gone through to reach the stage of this kind of transformation that you've gone through, which was a conscious effort, like you said, this year you'll be celebrating your 44th year of togetherness. So, and this is, I think these are very important milestones in life, especially in the world where we see a lot of youngsters getting married and getting out of marriage very, very quickly, right? And staying in a marriage requires an effort to be put in by both the individuals, then only it works. So, what would be, first, I would want to know what are your secrets? And also, if you can share some of your tips or messages or some advice to people to have a good relationship with each other, because that's what we all look forward to.
One thing is accept. I always reiterate that it is acceptance. And if something goes wrong, don't raise your voice. Listen to whatever the person is saying. So whenever he has any issues, I just keep quiet and listen. And when things are, little calm, I would say that this is what happened, which was not very acceptable for me or something like that. And in our case, we have been like, silent travelers or silent partners. And without speaking, we speak a lot internally. For example, like many occasions, I remember when Roshan was a child and I had taken him to Baptist Hospital for a checkup. And the doctor gave me a negative reply. So I was very upset. He was not with me then. He was in France. So then I was so upset. I was just passing through a corridor. I saw a, blood donation board. So I said, okay, let me do something useful and relieve my tension. So I went and I donated blood. And then those days only letters were there, no other communications. I came home and I told him that I went and donated blood. And the same day in France, he has donated blood.
Wow.
It started from there. And even before this, when we were engaged and I had gone out to with my friends for a movie. Some 3 or 4 college girls were there. We went out for a movie, and that time that was after marriage. Yeah, after marriage, he was put for a training under Army Postal Service. So I wrote to him that I went and watched a movie, Dulhan Wahi Jo Piya Man Bhai. I still remember. And incidentally, he has gone to another theater there where you were in Jammu, Srinagar. I think he was in Srinagar. He went and saw the same movie, same matinee show, same day.
Wonderful. So you were already in sync. Your souls were already in sync with each other.
When I come back from office, I would have picked up some bread or some puffs or some chickies or something like that. When he is coming back, he will be having the same packet. And when you open it, it will be the same thing. So many unsaid words, unsaid things which are crossing our minds, it just converges and, we don't have to say anything. So we have reached a stage where we don't have to say anything. So if he says something, it is yes for me. If I say something, it is yes for him.
Yeah, generally we don't sit and discuss much issues because we know that we have more or less the same viewpoint. What generally happens is that when between the couple is that both the partners will be trying to develop their selves, their career and who they are and their egos and things like that. Since I had to make a sort of return journey to catch up with her, I know what is to be developed. It is the self-awareness which is to be developed, not the ego. So I was working. That was very useful for my career. In my experiment with the bureaucracy, how to become aware of myself, where my mind is coming in, where my mind is misguiding me, where it is taking me in the wrong place. Now, if this happens between a couple, then they will know what they are doing wrong and when they should keep quiet instead of shouting at each other. So, because often silence conveys a lot, much more than the words. So they can choose that if they become more and more self-aware. Now, this is one thing which is very important for any couple, that they should become how their self is developing and whether it is developing in the right direction. Because mind is a big divergent source of divergence. And the lesser the mind, the better. Fortunately for me, she never had a mind. So it was easy for me.
I used to always tell him, why do you think so much? Because you think, you develop problems. Don't think, just act.
So I would request the two of you to share something which you like a lot about each other.
Yeah. Let me start. The first thing, the great thing that I like about Lata is her presence in the moment. She is 100% in the moment. And two other things which not only I like, I'm jealous about. Okay, is
I didn't know that.
her ability to love and connect with people, which makes me envious many times. So that is the second thing. And the third thing is that she has unlimited source of energy in her. Pure living energy, and it certainly doesn't come out of the food she takes. I don't know where from it. Maybe from the love that she has, and the presence. Because I used to wonder. I used to tell her that the teachers in the classroom require presence. So, but I never knew that this is the meaning of the presence. The sort of unlimited energy and total presence in the moment. This is what I like, and she has time for everybody. She has time for everything, and she gives us excellent, wonderful food.
Wonderful. So food still remains the way to connect to a man's heart. So, ma'am, what are the things that you like a lot about sir?
First of all, I must thank him for his compliments. And what I like about him, I'm just wondering, because he is a bundle of knowledge, he is a bundle of experience, and he is a walking encyclopedia. And so I can always, if some matter has to be written or something, he's there. So I don't have to worry at all. I'll give him just the things that I want to be conveyed, and then he'll put it in words. And financially, he has been a very good support for me, like any other husbands. Now, I think since about 2-3 years, I have developed knee pain and I've become a little immobile. My pace has reduced. And I always find that he is there for me whenever I need him. And he provides us with all the comforts that we want. He makes sure that we don't miss out on anything, be it technology, be it food, be it anything else. He will make it available for us even without my asking, because I don't ask anything to him. It just comes. So that very few people get it.
Now,
So it's a
these are
perfect
such beautiful relationship goals that you guys are setting for all of us to follow. And I also want to tell the viewers at this point that both ma'am and sir are available in case if somebody needs counseling vis-a-vis raising the kids with special need or otherwise also. Ma'am is supporting Ritvik running a music training school currently, and they are available on all social media networks to reach out to. At this moment also, I like to mention Mrs. Ruby Jain, because she became instrumental in introducing this beautiful family to me. And you mentioned about how Ruby Jain had an influence on you. So would you like to share about her?
Yeah, Ruby Jain came to our school, I think it must be about 2.5 years back. And when the beginning of the academic year, when all the teachers join, so a particular segment, we have a coordinator, and all the teachers who work under the particular coordinator, they all meet up, and we are supposed to introduce ourselves and tell something about us. And then, the rapport builds up. But always, we were like outsiders, because I used to be with Ritvik, and Ritvik doesn't communicate much. So I didn't want to, talk on his behalf. People will think, why is this lady poking ahead? So only to the limited required extent only I used to communicate with anybody. But Ruby Jain was such a open person, and she came in and she was so friendly. And she came to Ritvik, and she held his hand. Then I was taken aback, because none of the teachers who were there who had really held his hand or taken him. So she came and she held him and she was hugging him, and that attachment, that love that she showed for him, it was really something very amazing. And then she said, I love this kind of children, and she said he's very good at music and things like that. So I was very happy. I said, I'm so happy that he has a friend in the school whom he can really look up to. But unfortunately, she shifted into another segment, and we shifted into another segment. But we were in touch with each other. Then she left the school due to health reasons. But even now we are in touch with her. And I'm so happy that we got to know you. And you have created such a platform for us to showcase our not his knowledge, rather, not my knowledge. And
both of you are such humble people that I very rarely I come across such humble people, and I'm very fortunate that I have a list of such people now in my channel, Prerna Kisrot. And this community has grown like this. All these people who have come on this channel, on this platform to interact and share their life journey. The idea is that as a coach, when I'm interacting with people, when I'm counseling them at times, I'm doing a lot of corrections which are required along with them. They decide, we make the changes in life, and then we interact about it. But here, people like you are clearly the examples, the role models that everybody should, know, look around. You're not very far away. You're just within our reach. And therefore, that makes this, this small community, how we're interacting with each other, makes so important and so special. So thank you so much for coming to Prerna Kisrot. It was a wonderful experience knowing you guys.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. And we have thoroughly enjoyed it, and we would welcome any person, any couple, if we can be of any help. We don't know. We are not that very confident that we'll be able to provide all kinds of help to people, but because we have gone through a lot of experiences, and those experiences have taught us a lot. So those lessons can be shared, and if it's useful to others, we'll be very, very happy. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you once again.
Good luck for your channel, and God bless you.
Thank you, ma'am.